that me? Is that you?
That's you.
That's me and you. Hey. What's going on, y'all? This is Darius Marcel. And this is Brittney Vershay. And together we are House of Hagens, or at least collective members thereof. We are here having our very first YouTube video. It's kind of big.
It is big. It's major.
It's pretty big. We've been doing Facebook Live, and to give y'all just a quick backstory about how that came about, Britt woke up one day and was like, "Hey, babe, do you want to do a vlog of the wedding process?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Jumped on Facebook, started it, and started something that was way bigger than us.
Yeah. The response has been great.
Yeah, people just started reaching out to us. So here we are. But ultimately, this is a forum for us to talk about a lot of different things. And what I will do, just to make sure that I get it correct, I want to make sure that I tell you all exactly what our purpose is here. Let me pull this up really quickly. I should have had it up. See, I'm a rookie. I wasn't ready. You almost caught me sleeping. But let's see. Go to our channel. So that's what we can do before we get too deep in this. You can hit the subscribe button with the bell to get the notifications, and make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, all that stuff. So let's see. Let me find a little bit more about this is information. A little different on here. It's kind of weak. Oh, wow, here it is. So, House of Hagens, this is what we're here for. Just to give you all an idea so you know what we're talking about. So, Brittney and I, we tackle relationship growths that lead to relationship goals. And I'm going to say that again, relationship growths that lead to relationship goals. Many of the topics are things we've explored in our relationships or things we've experienced in our past relationships. We do our best to keep everything spiritually grounded, so the concepts and topics discussed can lead relationships toward God and not just human understanding. That's a really big thing that we want you all to understand. And to even go along with that disclaimer, I want to let you all know that anything that we say here is our opinions. You have the right to disagree. This is what we're having the conversation for. You have the right to go in an entirely different direction. Every relationship is its own thing, and we do not want you all to think that we believe that we know everything. We are just literally speaking from our perspective because we've had some things work. Right. So that's it. So today we're going to talk about legacy. So I'm going to let Britt talk a little bit because we talk about this type of stuff all the time, but this is a really big thing because of us going into marriage, but then also the current events in the world. So I'm going to let her talk about that.
Well, with legacy, it's important to really think about not just you and your spouse, not just you and your children, but what's beyond that. And we know that it's highlighted in the Bible when it talks about that a wise man would store bridges for generations to come. And so we want to make sure that we not only establish something now, not just to, oh, I got his last name, but what does that really mean? What does that really mean for us to share the last name, or for us to build something and establish something? It's legacy. So with that topic in mind, we also wanted to create something that was genuine, unique, something that was really unheard of in a while. Like, it was always something where in earlier times, I would even put it as far as like the 1800s, your family name had weight. And so when your family name was at stake, you had everything. You know what? Prime example, the show Game of Thrones. So, and we're no way sponsored by them, but just for an example.
Take it, though. We'll take it.
But the Game of Thrones show, it really shows the value behind a family and a family name, and how it talks about, a Lannister always pays his debts. So, knowing that the family has such weight and so much like what do you want to call it, like honor honor to their name. And so when they actually do that, and when they say that, when they make that statement, it's not so much as, I'm just saying it because that's my daddy or that's my mom, but it's more so like my name holds weight. And we recently went to Chicago last month, and a pastor that was there, he explained to us, he said, your name, your signature alone should get you everything you want. You shouldn't have to worry about going into debt. You should have to worry about hawking anything. That's my auntie say, hawking. But if you put in stuff like pawning stuff. So just knowing that your name holds more weight, you don't have to go into a car dealership and just, oh Lord, I hope they don't run my credit. And it's like, why? Why should you be in such a panic already when your name holds so much weight? And so the House of Hagens was established because we want our names to hold weight. We want our family name to grow and to be pretty much expound beyond just, that's just a family name. You really want to build it as almost like a trademark for real.
Absolutely, because the name Hagens means of the Most High Sons. So I take so much pride in my name, and it's funny because at church this past Sunday, Mom was saying my whole name. She was like, Darius Marcel Hagens. She's like, I don't know why I keep saying that, but it's just because I've actually started to institute that I want people to say my full name.
Yeah.
That is what my mother named me, and our names have so much weight to them. They have so much power, and you speak life into yourself when you say your full name. Your name has a meaning, it has a vibration to it. And that's what made me want to study my name, because I knew what Darius and Marcel meant, but I never knew what Hagens meant because it was a name we got through marriage. So I'm like, what is his name? Looked it up and I was like, oh wow, that actually adds to it. So that idea of legacy is huge because I feel as though my family is incredible as far as the amount of talent, the amount of intelligence that is available. And I feel as though we have a duty to do something very important while we're here on this earth. And because of that, that is why part of the saying is light, love, legacy. My brother Kay has a saying, I love the saying. He always says, what are you going to leave behind, a lie or a legacy? And that's huge because once you're gone, you cannot speak for yourself any longer. The only thing that will speak is what you have left behind. So to give you all an idea of why we decided to talk about the end, because we're talking about light, love, legacy. Legacy is the last part of that. And legacy deals with both life and death, but specifically death. Like I said, what you leave behind. And most recently, literally just yesterday, somebody who I actually had the chance to, I got to shoot. Now, that's a weird way to say it, but when he came in town, one of my friends invited me to capture footage of Nipsey Hussle when he was here. He came to the Marquee. He was on his Victory Lap tour and just, stopping around different cities. I got the chance to go. It was a crazy experience because my niece passed the day before. I just told the story, and for whatever reason, I held it together that day. I left from my sister's house the day of the concert, and I could not keep it together. I cried all the way home to grab my equipment. I cried all the way down to the venue. My sister Ebony was so distraught because she had really never seen me break down like that, and I didn't intend to break down like that, but it just happened. But that's because part of my legacy was gone. My niece was so dope. I never would have imagined that happening. But long story short, got there to the venue. Nipsey had a dope vibe. His energy was incredible, all this type of stuff. And I was so grateful that I got the chance to be there because you see why he had such an impact. I mean, it's one thing if you listen to his music, which I got the chance to, and he got robbed for Album of the Year. It wasn't too many albums. He should have gotten Album of the Year this year for real. But that's a whole different story. But his movement, what he stood for, all this type of stuff. So when he passed, I mentioned to Brittney, I said, man, that's kind of crazy. I'm like, if something like that ever happened to me, I want you to make sure that my work gets out to people, carry on my legacy. And she just looked at me, she froze. She's like, what are you talking about? She's like, if you get in a shootout? I'm like, not a shootout. I'm like, more so if I was to die young. I'm like, clearly doing positive things, and that's what ultimately led to this whole thing. We realized that we had to have this conversation first because couples don't talk about death. They're afraid of it, but specifically connected to Nipsey because he was building his community. He was teaching people about financial, I guess you would say literacy and growth, investments. He was teaching people about just how to move as a collective in the right way. With him having a background that did come from gang life, he understood that when you moved in a unit, what would happen. So him transferring that over to the corporate world was extremely powerful to watch because he was independent. A lot of artists talk about being independent, but he literally was. He is infamous for being the artist who sold $100 mixtapes, who sold $1,000 mixtapes. In order for him to build the capital to have his own company and all type of stuff and to back himself. So what he was doing was radical. It was revolutionary, but the most revolutionary part of it was he was teaching other people. And I had that spirit myself, and that's what led us to have that conversation. And I'll let her talk more about it because I saw something in her that I hadn't seen, but I realized we had not had that conversation.
It was emotional for me I put it this way. You go from going to this process of, yay, I'm getting married. And yes, I'm saying yes to the dress. I got the ring. I got the perfect man. And you have this moment where he can be snatched away from you. And everything that you thought about as far as like building a family and even just a wedding day alone, future children, businesses, enterprises, I mean, just your whole life, and you thinking that you're going to be with this person sitting in rocking chairs, rocking your lives away for the rest of your days. And the moment that he brought this up, I felt like, why would you think that you would be in that type of position for the work that you do, for the mindset that you have? Why would you deduce from all of that you would be taken away like that? And I mean, as far as Nipsey Hussle is concerned, he was just doing his work. He was just doing what he wanted to do to help settle and establish his family. And knowing that something like that, something so senseless, something so brutal, just something so abrupt can just stop and cause you to shift your thinking to, yes, I love this person, I get to spend the rest of my life with this person, to I never got to say goodbye. And I sat at work and I thought about it and I said, well, how do you say goodbye? How do you take practical steps to move forward and be at peace in the process to say goodbye to someone you love? And the practical point of it, before I go back to the emotional side of it, before I cry, the practical side is that you need to have this conversation. I knew that this conversation would happen, and I knew that it will be more structured because I like structure. That's me. That's the business mind in me.
Structure is
I
trash.
love structure.
I love structure too, but it's trash.
I know, but it's nothing more than just. I mean, and I appreciate that because sometimes you just have to dive in and just have that conversation.
Man.
Sometimes it just gotta take the plunge. So I thought about it, and I said, it's so many resources out here, so much information that people are just unaware of. I get calls all the time while I'm at work. People, you have like parents that pass away, and the children are fighting over who gets authority, who has access to their accounts, things of that nature, and it turns into a bloody battle. And why does that have to be that way? Well, number one is to make sure that you have a life insurance policy. Number one, we are seeing a high rate of people passing away. Like my parents just went to a funeral Saturday, actually, and it was sad because I was like, who else died? Who is this?
You
know, it's coming back to back to back, and you
person
don't.
was 46.
46 years old.
That means their half-life was 23. Same thing with Nipsey. His half-life was literally 16 and a half. That was his half-life. And when you think about that, that is insanely crazy. And so digging into that feeling that Brittney felt was interesting because I saw her have to process the plight of a black man. Because we think that when you're out here doing negative stuff, you out here running the streets.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you out here doing, you know what I'm saying, you in gang life where you out here, you know what I'm saying, chasing money, selling drugs, those types of things, we always look at that as the black man, or at least that's the narrative that gets talked about. So I told her, I'm like, me and my guys, so my boy Irv, or you know what I'm saying, like we on film sets, it'd be me, my boy Nice, DeSantis, all of us, like we literally be there, Zach, all of us, talking about real life issues. Cosmo, that's just what we do. And we talk about what it's like to be a black man because I told her, I'm like, we have these conversations in private because one of the biggest things is to have it in the forefront. One thing that you have is a situation where people are trying to compete with you to be a bigger victim. So we have situations where as black men, my boy Irv, we worked on a project collectively, me, him, Adam, Jamal, and a lot of other just influential black men here in the city called We're Not Monolithic. And we did that to show these black men are on this scale of so many different things. Light skin to dark skin, short to tall, skinny to fat, college degree to GED, to master's degrees, to doctor's degrees, to politicians, to rappers, to actors, to all these different things. But all of us are positive. We may be in different lanes, but we're all positive. And that is equally, if not more, radical than being a quote-unquote thug because your influence is greater. The streets will kill you if you a thug. You're either going to go to jail or you're going to die. That's all you got. So we know that. But what is it like when you're actually a positive black male who's seeking to teach other people how to be positive, and you are doing exactly what they tell you to do? Why don't you go and teach your own people? Why don't you build your own business? Why don't you... When we do that, you end up with situations like a Nipsey Hussle. You end up with a situation like Malcolm X, Dr. King, Black Wall Street. Those situations are challenging. So as a black man, you know that my voice is supposed to be loud. My voice is supposed to echo throughout history. But you have people who are trying to silence you because the very presence that you bring is a threat to their normal. And she couldn't verbalize what she said, but I saw it in her eyes what she felt. It was what it was like to be a black man. And that's how it is to walk outside. We have to think about legacy every single day. What if I don't make it home? What if I get stopped by the police? Did I do enough work that my life will be worthwhile? Did I say what I needed to say? Did I show the people love that I need to show love? And I try to tell people, especially like when it comes to black men and women, black women will try to pull the black man's story down and say, well, you're not dealing with this and this and this and this. I would never ever step on the plight of a black woman because I've grown up around too many black women. I know that their struggle is intense. It is a very uphill battle. And I always try to let them know, if you on this side of the mountain, just know we on the other side of the mountain climbing. You are not climbing by yourself. And just because you cannot see where I'm climbing does not mean that I'm not climbing. It does not mean that I don't have opposition. So that's why sometimes these conversations are not had, because I see situations where women ask, why don't men tell how they feel? Why don't black men speak? Because we get silenced, not just by the outside forces, by our own people.
Yeah.
And because we get silenced by our own people, if we're like somebody like me, I get to a point where I'm like, this conversation is not going anywhere. So I silence myself because I know that my words are being lost. And it was challenging to watch her have that moment of realization of what it is to go through that. But I'm glad that she did, because it gave us a new level of understanding, another level of common ground. And I told her it wasn't to scare her, because I don't fear death, because I told her, I'm like, I've had to talk about death with my mom since, like, I was like, even before my mom got sick, she was telling me about death and her not being here. So it was a normal conversation. So I jumped right in, and I forgot that that's not her situation. So I'm very comfortable talking about death, not from the standpoint of I think that I'm not going to be here, but I'm comfortable enough because my mom prepared me for her to not be here, that I'm willing to talk about that. So it was a really interesting thing, and I think it's a conversation that couples need to have, and that got us talking about things like wills, like, and she kind of started touching on that, your life's work, your inheritance, all of those things are essential. It has to be like, you can't be out here talking about relationship goals and you're not thinking about the end. With us being spiritual people, we think Alpha Omega. That's what God is. God is the beginning and the end. So that's why it's so important that we are here right now. We're putting our life's work into effect. If we're not here, our voices will be here. Somebody can come back and listen to this. We can go back and listen to Nipsey Hussle. And that's so dope. I listened to him today while I was working out, and I was just like, man, I relate to him. On top of for me, that's a fellow Leo. Like, so I understand his mindset. So for me, it's not just this surface level thing. Like, I bought into what he was on because I was on that too. So it feels different when you lose somebody like that, because it's not just hip hop lost somebody. It's like, no, the black culture lost somebody who was trying to push the culture forward, and that's difficult. It's so much more, because I think people was like, he's the Tupac of the generation. It's almost like further than just that Tupac idea. It's like he's one of the minds that Tupac sparked, because when Tupac passed, Tupac still was younger, so he still had almost a dual mind. He had that Gemini about him. He still was street at moments, but he could sit down and give you that intelligent conversation. Nipsey was refined because he was just a little bit further than Pac was, and it made it where his impact was so much different. I feel like he was where Pac would have ended up going. So it's like, it means that the rest of us as black men have to go that much further. We have no choice, because clearly the idea of legacy is important, because people are trying to prevent us from sharing what it is to leave a legacy behind that's positive, what it is to leave an inheritance, to leave businesses, to teach your kids about entrepreneurship, and to create a structure in your family where you all have your own foundation to land upon. That is huge, and that's what he was all about. He was all about rebuilding community, and when you have that, it's challenging to watch somebody go. But it's like a duly noted thing. It's like, I'm on the right path. I know I'm on the right path, because if I'm following this life of Christ, we see how Christ passed, and he was doing nothing but trying to spread peace and love to people, and they killed him. They chose a murderer over him. So, not that I think that's my fate, but I have to understand, if I'm going to walk like Christ, it is a possibility. And I think somebody like Nipsey knew that. The Dr. Kings, the Malcolm X's, they know that. And it's just a realization, and it's not something that you want to be the truth, but you just have to accept it for what it is. And it makes us have a different relationship moving forward, which I'll let her talk about that, because we just found the common ground to be able to know, okay, what do we do from here now that we've had this very uncomfortable conversation? How do we make every day valuable from here moving forward? And
I love letting him talk, because you don't get this conversation often. Talking about death it scared me. It really did, because I'm sitting here thinking like,
damn, we finna run out of battery.
Already, because you want to talk.
Well, not so much battery, but we finna run out of space. But we gonna double part this. We're gonna bounce right back. So if you see a little jump cut, just know we only jump cut just because we lost memory. Matter of fact, I'm gonna stop right here. Hold up. I'm just playing up. We back. So what you talking about, Britt?
I'm talking about just the conversation about death. That the realization of him not being here, and how the conversation was. It was necessary to have, but it was sad that it had to be had. In the context of, even if you're not doing anything, if you're doing something positive, you could still leave this earth. And it was daunting to me because I did not realize that in our day-to-day process, that yeah, he could get stopped by the police. Yeah, he could, just in his day-to-day things, he could be affected. He could be hurt. He could be harmed. He can be killed. And so I cover him in prayer, and I know that God is looking out for us to benefit, and I know that he wants to have our ministry being birthed from us and to make an impact on this world. However, the enemy is here to still kill and destroy, and with that ever present in my mind, the whole conversation scared me, point blank period. It made me realize that this is not a game. It's not a joke. It's not something where you can try to out-victimize somebody else. This is where you really just shut up and listen. And that's what I had to do. I had to really just shut up and listen, because what he was telling me was something that was present. It happens. There was a guy, I believe it was in Chicago, at his bachelorette party. He was leaving, and mistaken identity got him killed the eve of his wedding. And this was years ago, and the mother was fighting the battle for so long, and they finally gave recognition that yeah, it was mistaken identity, and they apologized, and the police force did. But just knowing something like that could potentially happen. You know, we're shooting this because we want to document our wedding process. However, there is a chance that may not happen, or there's a chance later on in life where we are married and we are establishing our lives together, and he's not here anymore. And I had to get that in my mind. Like, I hate to think that one day, and I don't want to live in fear because of that. I don't want to question every day, is today the day, or if we go somewhere, if I send him somewhere, will he make it back home? And so there's a thing we always say to each other, or at least I say to him, whenever he leaves and goes somewhere, I always tell him to come back to me. You know, make sure you come back to me.
And I say I will.
And I make sure that, you know, we establish that, just so we know that whether in this life or the next, you know, he will always come back to me.
Yeah. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
You know, it's on top of being a black man. It's on top of being a black man in St. Louis, where, you know, we're literally known as the city of being haters. It's beyond crazy that everybody knows this. So it's like everybody claim that they're not a hater, but it's like, who the hell's doing all the hating? Like, that's the part which is the most confusing, and we see the cycles and the patterns of it, but people don't want to break it. But I can say that I know some upstanding men, and what I love about the men in my life is that they are fearless. And you got to be. You can't be out here timid, because that makes it worse, because people feed off of that type of energy, and it makes them feel bigger than they are a lot of times. So for me, man, I've walked a lot of streets by myself and all type of stuff, not out here like stumping like I'm the biggest, baddest, but I literally, man, I trust God. If today is my day, then it is what it is, but just know, if it come down to a situation where I got the chance to get away or fight or do something, I'm never going peacefully. But it's like, I know how to operate in peace, and that energy changes situations. It shifts things. And I've avoided a lot of things I've seen things developing. My discernment is insane because growing up in the inner city and watching people get into altercations, I'm like, well, man, if he would have just walked this way, if he wouldn't have said something, or if he would have responded a little bit differently, this could have been different. All right, this camera cut off on me. I am using a Sony A5100 for this, so if Sony wants to, sponsor your boy and your girl, we can do that, because I use the 51 and the 6300. I've made magic with it, so I'll post some of that too, because anyway, but what we were just discussing, the podcast people gonna know. My spirit is his way because my mother, my father, my aunts, my uncles, many of their closest friends were Black Panthers, right? And I was telling her, my mom would not speak about those days unless she was coerced. Me and my sister used to purposely call them gang members so that my mom would get frustrated enough to actually go into the stories and tell us what actually happened. We'd be like, Mom, you was in a gang, you was out here, had your beret on, you was out here with your fists up, you was Black Panther, you know what I'm saying, walking around with your gadget. She's like, dude, it was not no gang, this is not what we was doing. Like, what you doing then? And we would just sit back and kind of listen. And she would talk about the fact that they were out here just going against the grain. They were standing up for their communities. They were feeding people. They were providing clothes for people who didn't have it. They were helping people find jobs. They were, teaching people how to manage resources and all this type of stuff. And what we would call policing the neighborhood the way that you're supposed to, because that's huge. In today's society, we live in a world where, people talk about, don't snitch, and then live next door to a criminal. And that's like we all saw Friday. That's having Debo live down the street and ain't nobody beat Debo up yet. Right. At some point, we either finna send Debo to jail or we finna take care of Debo. That's the only option. So it's like you can't have it in between, and that's what legacy is all about, because the children have to grow up in these environments.
And they see all of that. They see it, those moments that you have where you can teach, where you can instill something in them, and they can grow, learn. Oh, my mama taught me that this happened. Because I recall those moments too. I would ask my grandmother those type of questions, and she would kind of enlighten me as to what she went through in her life. And so learning more so about legacy. And let me say this: legacy is not what you put on the obituary. That's not what that is. A legacy is more so like, what did you leave behind that nobody knows, or if they do know, that they're proud to know of, and what your family can gather together and say, you know what, this is what we remember this person as. This is what we remember this person doing, and they want to carry and continue on that same work, just so your efforts do not die in vain. And so learning more about the conversation we had, and I had to come to the realization that even if he's not here, what is it that I can do that will continue his work? I'm not a photographer, but just knowing that the way he speaks to people, the way that he has a gentle spirit, having those type of conversations with people that enlighten them, and at the same time just makes them mad because he's not easily moved by people's words. And so learning that, understanding that, I had to really sit back and think about it. I'm just like, Lord, like, you're going to have to help me with this one, because I'm thinking like way down the line. Like, we old and we got grandbabies, great grandbabies everywhere, and the moment you think about that he could be just snuffed out like that, it hurt my heart. It was heartbreaking. And I'm just sitting there at Wingstop, and I'm just like, I'm pissed. Like, why would you say something like that right now? Like,
everybody
that
in Wingstop was judging us, yo. Like, I watched them, they was like, I told her, like, they couldn't whisper, so I was watching them try to figure out what was going on. I think they thought we were arguing, but we weren't, you know what I'm saying, because we was still laughing and stuff in between, but they couldn't figure out why she was being so emotional. But
I was emotionally.
If they should see this, they'll be able to know, like, we was having a real conversation, and we do that everywhere. Like, it doesn't matter where we are. Like, we could be in the car, we could be laying down, we could be walking in the store. It does not matter. Stuff just happens, and some of that, I will definitely take a lot of the credit for it. As she said, I will throw something out at you that I know you're not thinking about, because I'm always thinking. But I'm not thinking about what we gonna eat today. She always laugh because I'm like, I don't know what I want to eat. I don't care. Because I really don't care about food. I just don't. That's a whole nother topic. But, like, I just be deep in thought about the mysteries of life, man. Like, I feel like because I try to spend so much time alone with God, that's why my brain works that way. Like, he's just dropping gems in there. I'm just downloading stuff, and I'm just like, oh man, I need somebody to talk to about this one. And sometimes she just happened to be the first person, and sometimes it catches her off guard, but it's necessary. Because that conversation, as random as it seemed, even though I jumped straight into it, it was necessary. And it's kind of the way that most of our conversations will be here. It's stuff that we just jump head into, and it just happens. But because of that, our communication channels are open. And that's a big reason why we're here. We want everybody else who's watching this to not only be able to have a conversation with us, and be able to have that dialogue, because we'll have live discussions on YouTube sometimes, or Facebook, just so that way we can have that open dialogue with people. But then also, we want you all to have those conversations, because it'll help you to find common ground.
So I'm implementing those things.
Yeah, because death may be an easier topic for some people than it is for others.
Yeah.
Versus peace may be a challenging topic for somebody who's never had it. Anything can happen, but this platform is for everybody to be able to understand that you're not alone in what you're talking about. But even more so, to expand what you're talking about, do not sit and talk about what is on TV. Don't sit and waste your time talking about what you're going to eat all the time, or what you're going to wear and all that. Hey, it's not going to matter in a year. It's only going to matter if you ate the right thing. Like, when you decide, like, okay, we're going to talk about food, we're going to talk about the healthiness aspect of it. How is this going to benefit me? Because she talking about being here. I tell her, hey, we finna get in this gym, we finna eat good, we finna drink water, we finna be healthy, because I'm thinking about death. I'm not telling her that I'm thinking about death, but I'm thinking about death, but that's sparking me to think about life. How do we stay alive? We take care of ourselves, we educate ourselves, we work on our finances. So she doesn't realize that that's what is going on in my brain, so I'm thinking about death. But that pushes me to go to the other spectrum of it, and because of that, I think that is what's going to be the reason why long life is available. Like I told her, for as long as I can remember, I wanted to be 100. And then I've gone a little bit further in depth and started to understand what a day is to God. I'm like, well, I want to live a day with God. Why not try to be 1,000 years old? And people will be looking like, bruh. I'm like, well, why not? Who says I can't? Like, we limit ourselves the way that you watch people start acting old.
Yeah. They hit a certain age. Oh Lord, I'm just getting up here, like, getting up in age. It's like you can still be youthful.
Yeah.
The Bible talks about how your youth can be renewed like an eagle, and just knowing that you can be able to be renewed and revived like that. You can still be rejuvenated, and you may not even look your age. But I think the conversation that we've had sparked so many things in me, because I was questioning so much, and I just was not sure if I was ready to have the type of conversation. I was not ready if I even wanted to go any further in this relationship because of it. It was so dire that we had to have this conversation. It was so needed. And so I thought about thinking like the practical way. Like I know I mentioned earlier, like a life insurance policy. You need to start thinking about a will. If you want to look up some resources, I know LegalZoom.com, they have resources for you to build a will. And then also dealing with tax returns. Learn about your taxes. Go to irs.gov. Learn about what you need to do about future planning, and learning about plotting out your estate or a trust, and learning about inheritances for your children, and how those things would come about and how best to, deal with life after death.
Yeah. Because our motto is life, love, legacy. It is vital that that legacy part be there at the end. If we are spreading light and really operating in love, and we don't leave our children anything, we don't leave our families anything, we don't leave the world anything, where somebody can be like, who was Darius? And I've left them nothing. No work, no nothing of any type. I wasted my time here. And I genuinely, I want to give back to God, and he'd be like, I cannot believe you used all of that. I mean, I knew I put all of it there, but how did you do that?
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe you used every bit of it. So everything from, even just this is a form of media. And I used to overlook that, but this is powerful to be able to record a video, to understand the aspect of audio. That is a career path. That is one of my career paths. Acting, music, modeling, all this type of stuff. Tea, health and wellness, all this stuff. Like, that is huge. And I don't overlook that stuff, and I want to use every ounce of my talent. And I always encourage her to do the same, because when it's said and done, I want us to have no regrets. If I looked at anything in the last days of my mom, the only thing that got to her is what she didn't do. That's what got to her more than anything. It wasn't what she did right or wrong, because we all make mistakes. It was just like she always talked about she wanted to go to Barcelona. She never got to go to Barcelona. And I would have times where I would ask Mom, like, where you want to go? If we can go anywhere right now, this is even in her last day. If I could find a way to make this happen, where would you want? She's like, well, I would love to still go to Barcelona, Spain. And it's not that you're not going to have things you think about, but it's the way in which you think about those things. And I refuse for that to be our story. So as we wrap up here, use this conversation as something not to instill fear. The Lord has not given us a spirit of fear. All right, we back to wrap this thing up. By the way, because I'm trying to get a sponsorship from somebody, we are recording on a Samson G-Track microphone. That's recording into a nice 2018 MacBook Pro from the great people over at Apple. So if any of you all would like to, be a sponsor, I know what to do. See, that wisdom just popped into my brain that fast. I know exactly what to do. I'm just letting you all know what I'm twerking with over here anyway. But we're here to wrap this up. And as I was just telling the people on the podcast, you should spend a moment every day when you wake up to think about how this day could add to my legacy, or how this day could be the summation of my legacy if I should go. What will I do or have done that would give me peace if I should have to go? And I think about that every day. So I think that is something that everybody should think about every single day. I really do, and I think it'll change your life. I think it will give you the opportunity to expand past the fear of death. When you get past the fear of death, your life will open up. So if I say nothing else to you, that in and of itself, that'll change your life, yo. Get past the fear of death, and it will allow you to truly build a legacy that's worthwhile, because you will move with the trust of God, not the fear of the enemy.
Yeah.
Change everything. God is cold. Let's just say that God is working on your behalf, because God loves legacy. That's why he loves marriage. That's why he loves family. That's why he told us to be fruitful and multiply, because that is an extension of him. So the more that we are able to do, the more God is able to do, the more it's just the idea of a proud father. It's just like, man, look at all these kids are doing it big. That's all it is. Out here shining, literally being my sunshine, you know what I'm saying? Like, That is everything. So we just want to say thank you all. If you haven't at this point, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, like the video over there. I think it's gonna be over there. If it's not, I'm pointing the wrong way. I'm still a rookie. I don't care. But share this with your friends, because I know y'all ain't talking about this topic. So, especially with your significant other, or if you single, sit with this, because you can get ready for your significant other before they ever get here. For real. So, we want to say thank you all for tuning in. I'm Darius Marcel. This is my beautiful fiance, Miss Brittney Verche. We are of the House of Hagens, and we just want to say light, love, legacy, and just go be a blessing, y'all. Episode 1 is done. Ooh, your smile look white, girl. Are we official now?
We official.
We YouTubers.
We official.
I've been watching YouTube for who knows how long. I'm officially a YouTuber. She officially a YouTuber. Before y'all know, it's gonna be palm trees back here or something. We gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
We gonna figure all that out. We gonna be like the champion YouTubers that be on here making life look like, oh my God, I'm not living my life right. I say always on the beach, Lord. When do they work, Lord? When do they work? But
hey, establishing that legacy.
We need them. Hey, we need 1,000 subscribers,
all of that.
4,000 viewing hours. So if you just want to sit here and watch for the rest of your summer, we trying to watch. Pay, you hear me? No, not just because, but we trying to, as we talked about, get that legacy popping. But anyway, this is a blooper reel. I don't even know what this is. We just need to get out of here. Okay, bye.